You are listening to the Mary Jane Society podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel. Today we're going to learn about a potentially groundbreaking digital platform called the Cancer Playbook that could accelerate cannabis medicine for cancer treatment and redefine how patients, doctors, and researchers approach cancer care. Joining me today is Jamie Bennett, founder and director of operations, and Ryan Castle, director of research at the Cancer Playbook and Whole Health Oncology Institute. In today's episode, we're going to explore how the Playbook empowers patients with tools for symptom tracking, education, and support, how it enhances physician decision-making through patient-reported outcomes, the value of this data in clinical research and drug discovery, and how they're partnering with major research institutions to shape the future of cannabis and cancer care. Let's welcome Jamie Bennett and Ryan Castle.
What is the Cancer Playbook? And I guess Jamie and then Ryan, what your roles in this is and in developing this.
Yeah. So Cancer Playbook is a tool for cancer patients. You can go there, you can create a custom playbook based off of your different cancer types, your different symptoms that you're having. And what we do is we take patient-reported outcomes and research, and we combine that together to make a playbook for these cancer patients. I am Jamie Bennett. I am co-founder of Cancer Playbook. Jim Garancer is the other co-founder and head visionary for it. That man is on fire for cancer. He has got a 501c3 that he's had for 13 years. All of this started off of his son's story. His son has brain cancer, has had at a very young age, had a really bad surgery. It came back, and he was able to help his son come off of many different medications using FECO and using cannabis oils. So that's where like the heart of this program started for him. For me, when him and I found each other, I have a program in Oklahoma. Well, we have a program now, but we've all accepted it, where we help cancer patients get discounted FECO in exchange for survey data. So what that does for the cancer patient is lets them feel like somebody in the cannabis space cares about their treatment. That is like the number one thing that we get back. Not only do they get a discount and a significant one, we're in touch with them every Friday, and we are able to gather information about their current status this week, their dietary actions, whether they increase their vegetables and stayed away from sugar, their dosing that they took.
That's a problem for cancer patients, right? The sugar?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Sugar will feed that cancer. So we make sure to throw that in, not like throw it in their face in a bad way, but just help hold them accountable. Like, hey, did you keep your sugar intake down this week? Because that's important. So those surveys are used and collected. Then they're de-identified and they're put back into the playbook system. So the successes that are coming out of those stories is the data that is being used for the playbook. And I'm going to do a little bit of a short intro into Ryan. Ryan works with many of our teams. He is our head researcher. And the other half of the playbook is research. So what Ryan shares is the knowledge base behind Cancer Playbook. Ryan, I'll let you do an introduction.
Sure. Yeah. So hi, I'm Ryan Castle, and I work with Jamie and Jim, and it's been an amazing journey getting to really explore the world of medical cannabis. My background is in public health research from a systems dynamics perspective, specifically with behavioral medicine and integrative health. So I had always had some exposure to medical cannabis, but it was really after I was starting to work with Jamie and Jim that I really delved into that as a large focus and tried to find out one of the very first things we tried to do was determine what evidence was there in the first place, hard evidence. Where do all the scientists and physicians agree? And it turns out there wasn't really a lot that people had established that they agreed upon. And so that's why we put together what is currently the largest analyzed database on medical cannabis that there currently is. We have a meta-analysis that came out that has over 10,000 studies on medical cannabis that are incorporated into it, which has become it's in the top 0.1% of most read research of the past 10 years. So we're very fortunate that we've been able to tap into something important, and we hope to be able to use that to make Cancer Playbook something that's going to be able to help a lot of people, help a lot of physicians be able to help even more people. And that's where the research and the patient experience, we feel, kind of comes together.
I think it's probably, real quick, I think it's probably important to note that the Cancer Playbook is free to cancer patients. We are not a for-profit company. We all have a passion for this and are just here to help.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what the business model is and how you support it and things like that. Unfortunately, I have a sister who's in hospice right now for breast cancer. So I've been on that journey for the past couple of years, knowing what, all the things that they're up against, and, how each particular cancer is, very specific, has different side effects and all the different things that they're doing. So the platform is basically works on AI. So it aggregates all this information that you're putting in there. And is that basically how it's working on an AI model? Or?
Yes. Well, I'll break that down. First, I'm very sorry that you're dealing with that, and we may have some help for her as far as dealing with symptoms. So what we have on Cancer Playbook, when you go to cancerplaybook.org, the entire page has a ton of education. What we are a collective of, we call them everyday heroes. Your cannabis OGs who have been in this space for 20 years or longer are helping us with this program. So, there are lots of people, as well as we're partners with the Society of Cannabis Clinicians, which they have over 650 cannabis clinicians in their group. And we're also working with the ICR on some projects on our whole health oncology side. So there is some, substantial education that is available. There's also a section called Playbooks. When you click on the link down from that, there are some static playbooks for playbooks that we've already created. But there's also like the key piece on the website is that little bot in the corner that everybody thinks is, for customer service. And that bot that's our AI tool that has been trained with the data, that's been trained with the patient reported outcomes. Any cancer patient can go to that bot and say, hey, I've got breast cancer and I'm dealing with inflammation. What did other patients find helpful? And it will be able to give you an answer. It'll go in, it'll pull those key tags, it'll pull information, and it'll answer those questions for you, as well as do several other things. If you just need a basic knowledge, what is FECA, what are edibles good for, when can I use suppositories, those kinds of questions can be asked in that bot, and it can give you answers as well. And then what we also have is the option to build a custom playbook. So what we do on that is we ask patients to fill out a short survey. It gives our team the information that we need to go pull those data points, and our team will build you a custom playbook based off of your diagnosis and your symptom management that you need help with.
Yeah, I think, to me, obviously, the value of not only helping the cancer patients and aggregating all this information, but teaching the healthcare professionals and doctors, this is obviously a very important research tool that'll really benefit us down the road, and also for lawmakers and things like that. That seems very obvious to me, but are there other goals or mission of the Cancer Playbook outside of, you know, obviously helping cancer patients? I just see this on a much broader.
Yeah, we do have a much broader scale of things that we're trying to do. I mean, some of the things to include cannabis reform. We're working with Vicente Law Firm, which are well-known cannabis lawyers all around the United States. Ryan's actually had an opportunity to write a public comment on that that was used in a court case. Yeah, so there are some other things we're trying to do here in my state in Oklahoma. We are trying to change the laws to expand the cannabis research licenses that are currently available into allowing patient-reported outcomes, because it's not currently something that's allowed, so that our state representatives can get involved, the state agency, the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, can get involved in what we're doing. And, you know, we can't climb every ladder. So we want to be able to give them the tools that they need to take it to the meetings that they need to get federal change done. So there is a much bigger plan, but our heart and our soul are with these cancer patients that need help. They're our first priority. Their playbooks are our first priority. Their success stories, gathering success stories, building a community, that's our first priority. And then anything that we can do with our data afterwards to help the overall, you know, we've got the overall fight for cannabis, we definitely contribute to.
So I guess I'd love to talk about what kind of outcomes you're seeing and, you know, similarities and things like that. And I guess, is that Ryan? I guess, Ryan, if you could just tell us more about what you're doing, like your research and.
Yeah, when it comes down to the research side of things, it's really been unfortunate that people like that oncologist that you're referencing have had so much difficulty finding information, because the information's been out there. It just has not been kind of put together into one place. It hasn't been put into the context of the patient experience. It hasn't been put into the framework of here's what it means for somebody who is dealing with different types of cancer or different symptoms that are in common with cancer. And so that's what we've been trying to make more available. Obviously, the playbook's main focus, as Jamie was saying, is on the patients. We want to give people more tools to be able to make informed decisions about their own healthcare. And at the same time, that those choices are going to be determined or limited or expanded by both regulations and by the information that they get from their physicians. So that's where the work that we've been doing, Jamie was referencing Vicente. We've also worked with the Cannabis Coalition. We were very lucky to be involved in the push to reschedule medical cannabis with the DEA. We were the source of the largest block of medical data that was submitted to the DEA to make the case for rescheduling until that decision was suddenly put on the back burner.
Wow, that's exciting though, that you were part of the whole submitting that information to the DEA. Come on.
Yeah.
We're very, very grateful to
It was
have those opportunities.
We do some pretty cool things. I think so Cancer Playbook is powered by Whole Health Oncology. So what you have several teams of people coming together and merging to create a mission. Cancer Playbook is a smaller group of people influenced by a larger group of people, and Whole Health Oncology is really the research side. Ryan is with us on both. I'm on both. So that's kind of what you see is like the blend of, it's like which part is Whole Health Oncology, and that side is, you know, the reform and fight is more Whole Health Oncology, where Cancer Playbook is more, we're centered on the patient care.
Right.
So that's where the kind of divide is and how we're able to like conquer so much. There's a large team doing the Whole Health Oncology that is just an incredible team.
I mean, I think that it's been accepted, you know, it's been accepted for quite a while that, you know, marijuana is used for, to alleviate, you know, some side effects like the nausea and things like that. And cancer patients prefer to smoke that and this and that. But are you finding, well, first, how long has Cancer Playbook been around and gathering this information?
So we've had an interesting journey. We actually started with being early recognition as critical, which is a 501(c)(3 that's been around for 12 years. We transitioned about 4 or 5 years ago into FECO Playbook and then rebranded that out 3 years ago into Cancer Playbook, where we became more focused on like all over cancer care, where we had just started on like a major focus on FECO only originally, and quickly found that that wasn't, not that it wasn't enough, that the patients were more hungry for more information, and we had the abilities to work towards that goal. So we rebranded into the Cancer Playbook, and then from there, Whole Health Oncology, it was birthed as well. So
And what's FECO? What's FECO?
full extract cannabis oil, also commonly known as RSO.
Oh, that's what I thought. Okay, so
Yep.
you're saying that okay, because I just want to make sure everybody knows what that means. Okay, so you're saying that you previously had not been focusing on the RSO?
No, we have been the whole time. It was just solely focused on that. We
Yeah.
didn't focus on like diet or anything that was like extended where patients, we found these surveys that we were giving these patients were really helping for what the questions we were asking, and we needed to expand it. And that's where Cancer Playbook had, like, the rebrand had happened.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, holistic health approach, even when you're, that ill, makes a big difference in, how you're even feeling
Oh yeah.
and things like, it's so important that they have that whole picture because it really affects your whole body. So what kind of so in addition to just helping with the stuff that we already know about, what other types of how is it treating people for other things? I mean, have you seen like, don't we wish it would slow tumor growth or whatever? But
We've seen
beyond
no, we have seen
We
amazing
certainly do
results.
wish.
So we had a lung cancer patient on our program for a while, and she had 80% of her lung taken over by a mass, and she did chemo and radiation, and her doctors pre-warned her even with chemo and radiation that mass would never disappear, that they would be fighting it, that the reason we were doing chemo and radiation was so that it didn't spread further into her body, and that was the goal of it. So they were never expecting this mass that was taking over 80% of her lung to disappear. We put she joined our program. She started taking regular doses of FECO up to 1 gram a day, and it was I think it was within 7 months of that regimen, she went in and there was no recognizable masses left on her lungs.
how much,
Like
what was the milligram that she was taking every day? So it's pure concentrate, the RSO.
1,000 milligrams.
So
But you have to titrate to that. Do not, if for any patient that is listening, it is not suggested to start off taking that much THC, especially of this product, because it is not like smoking a joint. It is not something that is going to, their high is going to stay with you for 6 to 8 hours. So if you take too much, you are going to be in it for a while. So it's recommended to start with little doses, and what the patient reported outcomes show is what the success is that they take that dose for 4 days and they double it, and they keep doubling it until they get to that dose. So you start off with a little itty bitty, I don't even know, I mean, a little itty bitty dose and work your way up to that.
But you're finding that around the 1,000 milligram is kind of what they need to see any sort of benefits.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. There's benefits even at the smaller doses. So even at the itty bitty dose, your like the symptoms that you're experiencing, nausea, vomiting, those will start to subside or should start to subside. Inflammation after a little bit more of a dosing. That's what, yeah. I mean, the patient reported outcomes are amazing. We've got a 6-year-old boy here in Oklahoma, 6, 7, around that age. And he was getting ready to undergo a very aggressive cancer treatment. The doctors pre-warned him that he would be pretty much bedridden and incredibly ill, and warned the mother. And that mother sent me a message, and she said, he was up running around playing. You would have never known he went through the treatment. And he went to his doctors and he told his doctor he's been taking this little black medicine for his tummy and he feels amazing. And that kid just went through a chemo treatment.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So you're seeing like wide ranges. We also have a gentleman who, we can't, what we say a win for us is increased quality of life. When a patient comes in and they're stage 4 and they've already gone through chemo and radiation and their body's already done all of that, we're not going to claim to be the hero. What we can say is that the science and the patient reported outcomes both show that symptom management from those treatments can be the impact of them can be significantly reduced. Lower pain levels, people who were not able to eat are now able to eat, people who didn't want to get out of bed now have some energy. Those are the wins in our book.
RSO, is that taken alongside with all their other medication that they're on, right? Of course, right. So, and there doesn't seem to be any conflict with mixing these medications with the RSO.
I'm going to let Ryan speak on that one.
Okay.
So I was going to say that's you're getting into my wheelhouse right there. So that's the really interesting thing is when we looked through, like Jamie's been talking about a lot of the patient experiences, and that's the up close and personal folks that we work with. And that's the side of medicine that science too often glosses over. I've been guilty of doing that many times myself. I have an entire wall in my office of people who have dealt with every one of the diseases that I've worked on. I try to put people who have suffered from it up on the wall so I can remember these aren't numbers, these are people. And that's something that the project that Jamie and Jim built does beautifully. And to get to your point, yeah, the data also help support that. The numbers do have a role. The hard numbers, the raw science, looking into all of the medical studies across the board, we found that there was overwhelming consensus supporting the use of medical cannabis within cancer patients in conjunction with their normal care. So not in replacement of it and not reducing the efficacy of it. They actually found with there was over a 140% consensus that medical cannabis actually improved the effects of the cancer care. So when people are going through, whether through chemo or radiation, they found that when they combined medical cannabis with those treatments, that they were having better outcomes than they would have otherwise. Not just for the quality of life, but actually for the cancer itself. And that's something that we were really excited to see in terms of the raw numbers. Because, you can make the argument that, it's possible that there's a selection bias, or when people are reporting, they're reporting what they wanted to experience or what they think might have had some kind of an effect. But when you look at the numbers from over 7,000 studies that specifically looked at this topic, and there is a 304% greater body of evidence showing that medical cannabis not only treats symptoms of cancer care, like nausea, sleeplessness, so on, but actually had anti-carcinogenic capabilities. It actually shrank the size of tumors. It reduced the rate of recurrence. It reduced the rate at which tumors were growing, even reversed it and caused apoptosis. The direct targeting and killing of cancer cells, which is something that is extraordinary. And that's a really exciting thing to be able to bring back to patients, to be able to say, it's not just you, it's not just what you want to believe. This is backed up by the evidence, and what you're doing is very likely able to make a real difference in your life.
So you can actually prove that, even though, and I'm thinking naysayers are saying, well, of course it's a cancer drug. How do you prove that?
Well, unfortunately, prove is a dirty word for scientists.
Okay.
We will often say you can't technically prove gravity, but the evidence behind it is overwhelming.
Mhm.
And to give you a for instance, the evidence behind this is, as I said, 304% in favor of medical cannabis. For comparison, for most FDA-approved drugs, for it to be considered effective and safe, there should be roughly a 5 to 10% consensus in approving that drug, in agreeing that it's effective. We have a 304% that we're observing. So there's no such thing as proof other than the evidence that we see. And when the evidence blows the majority of other approved pharmacology out of the water, that's
Evidence. And how many cancer patients do you have in the whole portal, either that are still with us or not, like over the
So we
period?
have around 5,000 patient reported outcomes,
Okay.
and then over 10,000 research studies.
Do you find that the I'm sorry, I'll just keep referring to as RSO is effective in specific cancers, specific type of cancers? Are you noticing, or is it just really just a general all over type cancer?
So, we're still gathering data, so it's really hard to say that. As we expand, we'll have better answers for that in the future. The patients, man, we have seen from lung cancer to leukemia to bladder cancer to prostate cancer, and there's so much cancer out there that we would have, like, we're not done.
Yeah.
We're not done.
Yeah.
So what we have made, what we have enough data on to say soundly is the symptoms that cancer patients experience, because across the board, all of these cancer patients have symptoms, and all of the symptom management was able to be, we have enough data for that to say things comfortably on that. As far as specific cancers, that's our goal. We are still actively helping. We're still expanding from into it's like right now our active like hands-on cancer program is in Oklahoma. We are launching in Colorado in October or August I think. So we're expanding those operations to be able to get more of those data points. But right at this current moment, we've got a lot of data on skin cancer. And we're starting to gather a lot of data on lung cancer. So those are probably the two strongest, the most reported.
And is there, I mean, I obviously see a big opportunity here for assisting in drug discovery, obviously. I've even spoken to, I found it so fascinating. I spoke to a researcher out of Israel that's done a lot with breast cancer research, and they actually had a product on their market. This was like last year. So I just find it, very interesting in that respect of like which cannabinoids are very effective, or is it, I think the RSO is just a full spectrum, not a specific strain, right?
Yeah, you really want a blend. So you really want a bunch of strains. You want the most cannabinoids, the most terpenes that you can get when you're battling cancer. Unless there is just something that your body doesn't work well with. You want to throw the entire cabinet at it.
Yeah. Because we don't know
Yeah.
which cannabinoid or which, which is really working yet. So I don't know how that would work with you guys, like how you'll end up figuring that out. But maybe that's not what you guys do, but at least give these researchers.
We do have partners that are working on that.
Are doing that?
Yeah, it's not like we're not doing it. We're involved with other teams that are doing it. This space is so large that it takes teams of people collaborating to get stuff done.
I know
we're collaborating in it.
I do know from speaking to this drug discovery researcher, it's a painstaking effort to, take a strain, each, different cannabinoid, and test it, and if it works, if it doesn't, on what receptor and how it opens it up and all that kind of stuff. So I know It's a long process. So yeah, so who are you working with in this area of research, or any other notable?
So it's hard to say because we partner directly and indirectly. So for example, I work with Cancer Playbook and Whole Health Oncology Institute. I also have done work with Harvard Medical and Harvard School of Public Health and Mayo Clinic. And there's a lot of cross-pollination. Mayo Clinic is also currently working with one of the other people that's on our team. In addition, we've already mentioned Vicente, the Cannabis Coalition, and there are a number of other partnerships that Jamie, I don't know for sure which ones we have agreements in terms of what we can disclose yet, but I can say that we are working with a large number of both public health organizations, medical cannabis organizations, and cancer organizations to try to find the common ground between what we really focus on, which is the patient experience, the research, and finding a way to make those two things come together. And we're lucky enough that the exposure we've gotten both through the Cancer Playbook project and through the research that we've put out has gathered a lot of attention. And so we've been able to have a really fantastic choice of really influential and profound people to work with.
We're also identifying like new projects that need to be specific based off of, so like we spent a lot of time gathering data and then analyzing the data. And then we also sat down and looked at where the gaps in the data are, and that we're strategically making partnerships with right now, like with different, like we're in an outreach to different universities for very strategic things. So that's kind of where we're at on that. Like I said, we want to expand where we're at, but our first focus was the cancer patient who's scared and confused. So once that avenue was built, now it's time to,
put the data to work.
And take off running, and that's where we're at. So we sit in meetings, a couple meetings a week with very, very interesting people that we would have never expected having conversations with, that move the needle in what we're doing. So, every time you do that, it's like writing another strategic plan all over again. Like your entire strategy of your company changes. Except for the Cancer Playbook. That strategy does not change. I mean, that's a core. But as far as the whole health oncology side of this, it changes monthly.
It's the opportunities. I think I'm so excited for it. I think it's just great. And, it's just a great model. Aside from having been able to get to the DEA, have you had any other interactions with, any government officials that you feel are really listening? Because obviously we all feel like in the cannabis industry, it's so obvious the benefits, but they're not listening. So
here in Oklahoma, I have had an amazing response from the senators in Oklahoma. I have been invited back to the Capitol more than once to sit down and have meetings and discussions over how this plant is truly helping medicinally, which has helped influence some of the decisions that these senators are making on their votes. I also wrote a bill in our state. That was a learning project, and it truly was just give us the right to collect patient-reported outcomes on cannabis underneath an OMA license. But being able to do that, to get support, is still an active bill. It'll be heard next session. So we're actively having conversations with our legislators about this bill and why we need it and what we've gathered so far. So there's an active project for us right now. We're actively in at least Oklahoma right now.
Yeah. And what about the FDA? It just feels, come on, 2018, we had the Farm Bill. Do you have any insights into that? What's happening with them?
The information that we've been getting is both a little frustrating and also at the same time more than a little exciting, because right now it seems like there is a little bit of a balancing act. There is a pretty significant movement within the FDA specifically to try to get cannabis rescheduled, to try to make medical cannabis something that's regulated, that's something that's available to patients, something that can be explored, which the evidence more than supports. I mean, let alone from a Schedule 1 cannabis, just on the merits of its efficacy and lack of side effects should be Schedule 4, 3 at best, or at worst. But the pushback seems to be coming from DEA in large part because of established traditions and culture issues. But what we find really exciting, or at least I shouldn't say we, what I personally find very exciting, and I think others should as well, is that right now we're at a tipping point. And that means when you're in a system that is at balance, where it's perfectly kind of wiggling both directions, any amount of leverage you can bring can tip the entire system to go one way or the other. Now, we feel like there is enough evidence, and that we've got enough evidence, and we're in touch with enough people who have the ability to leverage that knowledge, that the movement can easily be pushed over. But if we don't push while that wiggle is still in balance, somebody else is going to push the other direction. So we feel like this is a really special time that has a huge amount of opportunity to make a real dramatic shift, because everything, if you look around the country, almost everything is up in the air in terms of the status quo is being questioned at every level. And so that goes for medical cannabis as well. And there's an opportunity to take advantage of that spirit of questioning to try to make some positive change and apply evidence to the real problem.
So are you working with anyone on an international level? Because I feel like as far as the cannabis industry globally, Europe has more of the medical mindset, even Australia really, and they're, implementing, more medical grade systems over there and seem to be interested in it. And it's now going through their pharmacies. So you're, educating those doctors more. There's got to be some information that you could even aggregate from those. So just wondering what you're doing on the international level, if you've gotten there yet.
We've been in touch with the Australian movement as well. We've coordinated on data sharing with them. They're doing some fantastic work over there. And
Yeah, I've heard that
it's
actually.
really encouraging seeing what evidence can do when it's put into the hands of people who are willing to look at it and act on it. Because we have gotten, I think, used to the idea that, well, things are the way that things are, and that they're just never going to change, but they can. We just have to decide that they're going to change. And Australia is a good example of that, because we're seeing them looking at things and changing the way that they do what they've always done. We're seeing the same thing in a lot of places in Europe as well. In Germany, in Spain, and a number of other different countries throughout the EU, we're seeing people trying to find that comfortable place of the way that they have always traditionally viewed cannabis on a legal level, and the way that they can approach it medically. And so we have been in touch with some folks over in the EU. We're looking to probably bolster that in the future. We've got some good contacts over there. So Australia and the EU are definitely some areas that we've been.
Yeah, because I mean, they're really basing their launch on data. They're really, I mean, part of the pilot programs in Germany, well, and Switzerland too, is there's a requirement that they have to partner with some sort of a research university and collect that data. So I see the EU and Australia a big partnership here, because that's what they're looking for and demanding, and which I wish we were doing here. And how we're going to be behind on cannabis drug discovery if we don't get this moving, because they're already doing it over there.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. So
It's
is there
a rich
anything?
field.
Yeah. Is there anything that I've left out that we should know?
Yeah, one thing that we left out is that we also have a program for dogs. Yeah, dogs get cancer. They have an endocannabinoid system. Yeah,
Yes.
We have a program for dogs.
Dogs, my dog died of cancer a few years ago, but it's just like that is rampant in dogs. Cancer is huge. That's probably the biggest cause of death in dogs.
There's a whole, it's like a double-ended website. So yeah, there's one side for humans and one side for dogs.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's fantastic. I love that. That's another area that we need to take care of.